this modern warfare. NATO needs to develop weapons for the 21st century. They don't have hypersonic missiles. They don't have good air defense or electronic warfare. They don't have good drone technology. So you pumping out, money to build tanks and destroyers, aircraft carriers. This doesn't help. So we don't even have the technology itself. Or do we? Let me play you this clip from Trump actually, and let me see what your take is on it real quick.
Okay.
How come
And
they
so
have
we have a lot of
hypersonics
power.
and Russia has hypersonics? We don't. Are you
Because
ready?
during Obama's administration, they stole the design for Russia stole the design. They got it from
Us.
us. Some bad person gave them design. It was our job. Now, I authorized the building of hypersonic, and we're doing super hypersonic, actually, which is even a step better. But and we'll have them starting fairly shortly. But Russia got them, and they built them, whereas they stole them during the Obama administration. Obama, not Biden, not anyone else. They probably stole plenty from Biden. We'll hear about that, too. But they stole the hypersonic stuff, and they made hypersonic missiles.
Is there any truth to that? That we had the designs for hypersonic missiles, and
No,
then Russia took them?
Right, yeah. I think on the face of that, that's a ridiculous claim. And the reason I say is that if indeed that happened, that we had the designs back in what you're saying, 2016?
Even earlier, I guess.
Yeah, even earlier, sometime in it. And then the Russians stole them. Well, the Russians developed hypersonic missiles in 2018. Here it's 7 years later, we still haven't. So if we had them, why is it taking us 7 years longer? It already shows that the Russians are superior. That they even if they did, somehow they have the ability to implement it, put it into production, and we don't. But I don't believe that claim. Actually, it was something that Scott Ritter, who is I think very well informed on these subjects, being a former weapons inspector. Said that what Trump is talking about is actually there was a fear that if you look at the Russian side of it, they began research into hypersonic missiles back in the Soviet era. I think it may have gone all the way back to the 1970s. So they had programs. They were looking at developing the concepts and so forth. So they already had a head start on that, and it was the Americans who tried to steal some of this. Now, because especially during the 90s, there were a lot of these Russian institutes kind of opened up and they began to collaborate with Westerners. And the Russians were afraid that some of these Westerners may have acquired top secret information, especially about their hypersonic program. And I think so at some point, there was a fear that some of the secrets, maybe it wasn't the 1990s, maybe more like 2010, when the Russians decided they needed to find out, what did the Americans, what information did they acquire? Did they actually get some top secret information they should not have gotten? And so they did look into, I guess through espionage, what the Americans were doing, how much of their own information they got. That's the explanation that Scott Ritter provides, and so I think that's what Trump is seizing on. Say, well, they spied on us, but I just think again on the surface. Okay, even set aside Scott Ritter's story, even if the Russians did just steal it. It just shows the superiority on that side. That 2018 they already had them, and we're building them. Why hasn't America been able to do that?
Why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a very good question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very, for me, it really shattered my perception of the U.S. military. I believe it was you who told me. I wasn't even aware of hypersonic missiles because it wasn't really much of a topic. I can understand why the West doesn't want to talk about it until really the war started breaking out. And then I started understanding about these missiles and then realized that China has them, Iran has them, maybe North Korea has them, but the U.S. doesn't have them. And this is really the game changer. Even Pete Hegseth, there's a clip of him talking about and every war game that we have with China, we lose. That in 15 minutes they could sink our whole navy with hypersonic missiles. That he straight up says that there's this acknowledgement, and so it's just clear to me that this is such an important technology in modern warfare. And if you as a military do not have this technology, then you're not really in contention for as a global military superpower, in my opinion. I know that's so crazy to say, but that's just kind of my opinion now, and just kind of what I've been seeing. Because like you can bomb the crap out of people and do these things with, but
yeah, but that's
well, you can't do that to Russia. But even if you do that to Gaza,
Iran. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, even if we just pivoting over to Gaza a little bit, just think about how devastated that place is. That this is Israel, a nuclear power that is supposed to be like the strongest military in the Middle East, backed by the most powerful country in the world, the United States, that's bankrolling all of it with supposedly the most powerful military in the world. And then we saw what happened in Gaza with this hostage exchange. Hamas is standing proud. There are cheers. There's people in southern Lebanon apparently coming down, waving Hamas flags. People in the West Bank. Hamas is now stronger than ever, I think you can say, in terms of just global support. And they are there. You see them there at the stage at the hostage release with their, like, it's not destroyed at all. So here is basically a contained open air prison that is completely blockaded, and the most powerful military in the world, the US, and Israel, they lost. It's just, and then you say the same thing with the Houthis, pestering the US military in the Red Sea. It just, to me, it's just so crazy that we don't have this technology, and there's this idea we have all this bluster going around that we want to start wars all over the place, and we need to look in the mirror and be like, hey, yeah, well, our heydays are over. That's it's not the 90s anymore.
Yeah. No, well, I think in general what you say is true. I would push back a little bit on Gaza, and the reason is I don't think like having hypersonic missiles or any of these new technologies wouldn't have made any difference there. The problem in Gaza is that first they were fighting not a conventional army, but these, you could say essentially like a guerrilla force that had a large underground network, and it was. I think probably the only way to really go after them was to go underground, and I think they were just too afraid to do that. So they just kept on bombing from above, killing civilians. So that's slightly. It certainly does show a failure, and it shows the limits of military power in general. But it's not so much about the technological issues. But in the case of the Houthis, I think it is. It's just that the Houthis, have shown that with these missiles, they can do a great deal of damage, and we can't respond to it. We just, we've hit them hard over the course of many months now, and they're still standing, and they're still enforcing their blockade. My understanding is they lifted it partially because of the ceasefire. But they're still not allowing directly Israeli-linked shipping, through the Red Sea.
Trump said that we are doing something even better. We're developing super hypersonic. Is that even a thing?
Well, I heard that actually even from Scott Ritter. It's just like, okay, we decided to, instead of, just producing a simple, let's say, no bells and whistles kind of hypersonic missile, we decided to put on all the bells and whistles, which I think is typical, and it's probably stupid. So maybe we'll get something that's super duper in some sense, but it's going to be horrifically expensive, and probably will have all kinds of maintenance problems. And, it's just, again, it's going to be, maybe it'll work, maybe it'll be pretty good, but it'll come at tremendous cost. And, it's obviously taking a lot of time too. Again, it's just like the Russians, their philosophy really is just, I don't think it's quite fair to say quantity over quality, but to balance quantity and quality. They develop these new technologies, but they don't put all the bells and whistles on it. They make something that's quite effective, and then they produce a great number of them. And and that's what wins wars. If you can only produce 12 missiles in a year, which is said to be the case for the SM-3, which is fired from ships. That's not going to win any wars for you, even if it's the world's greatest missile, which it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe that I was duped. The whole world was duped on just how powerful our U.S. military was.
I was surprised by how much of a paper tiger NATO turned out to be. And I wasn't. I thought that again that the West would overwhelm Russia because again, if you look at even at the purchasing power parity, which shows Russia as number 4 in the world, they leapfrogged both Germany and Japan after the SMO began. So all this talk about their economy in tatters it's nonsense. But even if you look at the purchasing power parities, like when you combine all the Western European economies with the U.S., it's much, their total economic output should be much, much larger than that of Russia. But somehow they can't produce the things they need in this war. It's really quite astounding.